Good morning, everyone, and afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Resource Allocation Subcommittee. As you members are aware, the public element of today's meeting is being live streamed, and those participating in the meeting have given consent to their inclusion. The recording will be available on the City Corporation's YouTube channel following the meeting, and it shall be retained for up to 1 civic year. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk, and my welcome to that of the Town Clerk to members, officers, and indeed, of course, those members of the public who are observing this meeting of the Resource Allocation Subcommittee. I just want to start by reminding members that as we've not been given advance notice by the Town Clerk's deadline, we will not be discussing information items. As you know, if you need to discuss them, you have to declare in advance, and we didn't receive any such declarations, nor will I be taking questions at agenda items 7 or 20, because again, no questions were submitted by the deadline. That being said, Town Clerk, let's move straight on to the apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies for absence have been received from Sheriff and Deputy Keith Bottomley, Tice Brooke, Alderman Vincent Keaveney, and Florence Kilson-Amford.
Thank you very much. Item 2, Town Clerk.
Do any members have any interest to declare in respect of items on the agenda?
Any members to need to declare? Seeing none, let's move swiftly on to item 3.
Item 3 is to agree the public minutes and non-public summary of the subcommittee meeting held on the 9th of September. Chairman, apologies if I may, just one small correction or addition to the minutes that Deputy Benjamin Murphy observed the meeting as a non-committee member, so I can add that in. I'm
sure that's perfectly fine. Thank you for doing that. Are members content to approve the public minutes of our previous meeting as a correct record? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's now then move on to the substantive business of the subcommittee this afternoon. Item 4, Town Clerk.
Item 4 is a report on the air source heat pump and photovoltaic installation at the Mansion House.
Yes, so members, this the scope of this project, which seeks to support reduced carbon emissions at Mansion House, part of our climate action strategy, has been increased. And I'm going to invite the officer, Adam Farjam, to provide a brief introduction to this, because there is a little bit that needs to be said. And while you're also doing that, Adam, I would like you to please provide us with confirmation that this project remains within budget, please, if I could ask for that. So over to you, Adam. And then I'll take Alderman Hales.
Thank you very much, Chair. As the members are more than likely aware, this is the 4th paper I've brought to the committee regarding this project to install an air source heat pump and photovoltaic PV cells on the roof of the Mansion House. This project is now, the bring today is a decision, an issue report to ask for permission to carry on with the project with the increase in uplift in scope and costs, but also or to decline the project. The project is currently going through the planning decision. Planning has been submitted and is going through. A decision was due to be made on the 27th of October. However, extension has been requested to allow final designs to be put forward to reduce the number of conditions. The project will be air source heat pump to provide heating and hot water to the Mansion House, and photovoltaic panel to provide electricity for use by the Mansion House.
Does it remain within budget?
It's within budget. It's being funded by CAS money with contributions from CWP money from existing roofing budget works. The scope increase has come about through the state of the roof beneath the proposed air source heat pump, which means that the project's now going to have to cover roof works before the air source heat pump can be put in, and those will align with the future upgrade works to the Mansion House in 5, 10, 15 years, whenever that happens.
Thank you. Thank you, Alderman Hales.
Oh, I hope it's not 10 or 15 years. We need it quicker than that, Paul. But firstly, thank you, Paul, for allowing me to go with you round Mansion House for 90 minutes and actually see from top to bottom what's required here. I think I know the answer to the question, Chair, but I just want to ask it just to make sure, which is that the work we're doing here is, without prejudice is the wrong word, but it accommodates the future plan redevelopment. We don't want to be spending money to then have to do something to fix this when we come to the subsequent piece of work. So I just wanted to check that this installation over the mansard is going to accommodate, pun intended, it's going to fit nicely with the broader refurb plan that we have for the house. Thank you, Chair.
If I may, Chair.
Yeah.
The mansard roof does need replacing, and it will be replaced as part of the major works. This is the smaller area above the staff bedrooms that will be done as part of this project to avoid the situation of having to put an air source heat pump on the roof, take it off again, redo the roof works, then put it back on again. So yeah, they are in complementary, and we're working across all the city surveyors to make sure they work together.
Thanks for that, Tim. Helen Fenterman.
Yeah, I wonder if I could just ask for a bit more clarification on the money, because I do confess that I don't think I'm quite following this. I think what you've said on page 11 is that the total estimated cost is 2.3, excluding risk. I don't know what the value of the risk or contingency might be, and that's a reduction from the 3 million. Yeah. So then we get to recommendations. Which says 5.1 is approved, and then that 5.1 says approve the uplift in scope and costs.
If I may, Chair. The uplift in costs is for the roof works. Previously, those roof works weren't going to be included in this project. The £3 million that was put forward earlier was a very, very rough estimate. The original cost was going to be about 1.8 million. It's then gone up to 3 million with the roof works. We've had a detailed survey and detailed cost back for doing the roof works, which surprisingly has come out cheaper than originally estimated. So that's where there's the reduction in cost, albeit there is new money coming into the project to pay for the roof repairs.
Helen, are you happy with that?
I was fine until you said new money coming into the project, your last statement. So what does new money coming into the project mean in terms of meeting the priority that Chairman set you?
So this new money is the contribution from CWP, Cyclical Works Programme, money that wasn't previously going to be involved in this. It was going to be a completely CAS funded project, but because the CWP money is required to ring fence to make those roof repairs, that's where that's coming from.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps, Chair, in future we could have papers that clearly sets this out, because it's not at all clear until you ask more questions what was in originally, what's come in since, and what an uplift in costs means in this context.
Yeah, I think that's a fair request. If we could note that, officers, please, going forward, just to make it a bit more clarity. I think transparency might even be the word for members, so that they feel comfortable going forward would be good. Any other comments or questions? If there are none, are members content to approve the amended scope and the cost of the project? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Adam. Item 5, Town Clerk, please.
Item 5 is a report on City SIL and OSPR and capital bids in Q2 2026.
Yeah, so we're being asked members to consider various bids for funding for onward recommendation to next week's Policy and Resources Committee. Now, there are several matters to consider here. However, I would like us to postpone our decision on the Barbican podium bid until we've discussed the non-public report on investment in social housing, as the two programmes are related. Having said that, that bit has to take place in non-public, but as this is a public paper, I'll ask the Town Clerk to ensure our decision on the Barbican podium bid is recorded in the public minutes, okay? Just for transparency on that. So we've got the other decisions before us. Caroline, do you or Sonia want to say anything at this stage? It's got your name down against it, even though it's a joint report, of course. Katie, you also most welcome to speak.
That's fine. So apologies. So the priorities board of officers that comes together and assesses these bids are recommending to RASC a few sets of recommendations. As you say, SIL funding to be allocated to the Heat Networks project, the Lombard Street Highway Improvements project, and as you say, the Barbican Podium Phase 2 will come to your later discussion. The second recommendation or main recommendation is funding is reallocated from the Smithfield Public Realm Improvements to fund the shortfall in the London Museum's budget for Section 278 works for the development. And finally, that capital bid allocations are made to fund corporate device replacement, the Superintendent's House redevelopment, lighting upgrades for the Guildhall School of Music and Drama, and apply the remaining allocation again to Barbican Podium Phase 2, which again, that will come to the later stage. So happy to take questions. We do have officers around the room relating to each of those projects as you see fit.
Right, Tim.
Just a very quick one. What does the shortfall in the London Museum's budget mean?
Ian.
Thank you, Chair. The London Museum project is being developed in line with normal protocols around developments, which means that as part of their part of their planning approval process, they are required to sign a Section 278 agreement, which means they fund the works that are immediately adjacent and as a result of their impact on the highway. Around that, we have already established a separate project to improve the wider public realm for the area, which is the Smithfield Public Realm Scheme. So the funding position from the Museum of London is that they feel they do not have sufficient funding in place to actually meet the obligations that would be delivered through the Section 278 agreement. So what is being proposed here is to reallocate an element of the wider funding for the scheme that came originally from the on-street parking account and use that to meet the shortfall for the museum to enable those Section 278 works to be delivered. The complexity around that is also because it sits within the wider agreement around museum funding, where overrun costs are split 50-50 between the city and the GLA. So we're meeting in the short term that shortfall on the basis that the GLA will then meet 50% of that at the conclusion of the project. So that sits within the global agreement that we have with the GLA. But yes, it comes from essentially the museum not having sufficient funds to deliver those Section 278 works around the project.
I see. Okay, Tim, are you happy with that? Or do you want to come back?
Well, I suppose on the basis that this is a short-term fix, fine. But I constantly hear more money, more money, more money around the Museum of London from the corporation. And look, ultimately, that's a member decision, right? But yes, I highlighted this when I got the papers. I thought, I don't know what that means, actually. So thank you for clarifying. But I think the expectation that that is a temporary fix and will be addressed down the line, Chair, is an important point.
A very important point indeed. Deputy Chairman and then Helen Fentiman.
2 points. One, just on Ian's answer, I just concerned you implied that we want to get GLA approval at the end of this. It seems to be that we should get that up front if they're going to ask them to pay our half of it. And my other point, in response to Alderman Hales, we made it very clear, and we'll make it again very clear tomorrow at the Finance Committee, that should the museum come back for more cash, the corporation will only be prepared to provide that on a loan basis. It will not be a grant. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah.
So on the GLA point, the GLA have agreed that it fits within that global agreement, so they will fund it, but they're looking to fund all of the overspend, or the 50% that they are going to cover at the end of the project. Our problem is we need the money now to actually place orders for physical materials.
Okay, Helen.
Yeah, and thank you, Ian, for the explanation. I also wondered what Section 278 meant. And again, for clarity, perhaps in reports, first time it's referenced, you could describe what it is. I think the main point, though, is it's kind of a bit like Tim's. It kind of feels like money is just, kind of flowing out. And I guess that's hot on the heels of a different committee I was in this morning when they also felt the money just flies through the door. But isn't there, and I'm not expecting a discussion on this now, but just to log the point again, that we don't seem still to be on top of all of the expenditure on all of the big projects. And it's easy to agree things on a piecemeal basis without necessarily following through what it means for other things. And I think that we do have to get to the bottom of that. We've talked about it before. We talked about it at the away day, and we still haven't got there to help us guide on some of these big decisions.
Helen Chamberlain.
Thank you very much, Chairman. So I think in terms of headlines on the big projects, we know exactly where they're funded from. We know exactly what the rate of pace of the spend is as well. What we've got here is an issue which is prescient to what we want, come the museum doors opening and having the public realm around it looking the way we want to. Here it is a ring-fence fund of on-street parking reserves. So it's one of the funds that we can spend on this. We're not dipping into general reserves. We're not dipping into general capital reserves. So this is a good use of money that we currently have to fund something that we want. I absolutely take the point from members. It was, an officer discussion at the priorities board was exactly along similar lines, that we are ending up paying for something which is an obligation on the museum. But if the museum cannot pay for it, and given there are other pressures the museum is covering within its own budget and has to cover those, or it falls back on the GLA and the city, we are following through the principle of that. So if it did come back to us at the end, in all likelihood, where would we fund it from? It would be from here. The only issue I think we've really got is the fact that the GLA money is not coming through until the end, and that's a cash flow situation, and we're doing that with the rest of the agreement. So I do feel, members, that although it sticks in the gullet to be paying additional monies for it, this is the most prudent place we could finance it from without it interfering with other programmes.
On the cash flow issue, Chamberlain, is it reasonable that the GLA should say they want to do this at the end rather than, if we are having to suffer the cash flow issue, why should the GLA not be suffering the cash flow issue at the same time?
So the GLA pay over the monies in accordance with the agreement of the spend up to date. So effectively, they are paying their cash flow now.
Oh,
I think when it gets to their principle agreed that they had approval for, then that's when it starts becoming more difficult. And that's where they want the total amount to be worked out, and then they'll make that commitment.
Tim?
But maybe I'm misunderstanding. The best case scenario seems to be that we write 50% of this ourselves, and the worst case scenario is we write 100% because the GLI don't pay us back 50%. But either way, we're spending money, we're funding something that someone else should be paying. So the GLA have already given the commitment that they will pay to it, so this is a cash flow issue. The GLA are paying over cash, so it's not as if we're out of pocket with the overall programme. In the grand scheme of things, this is a small element of the 70 million, the 90 odd million they've committed to. So the issue underpinning it is why the museum not able to cover their 278 obligations, but having gone through it with the finance director at the museum with other pressures on it, I think that is true. And then it comes to the point that if they don't pay for it, then which bit gets left until after the opening, and it won't be the bit we want for obvious reasons. So that was my next question. Let's assume the worst case scenario. We've taken money from a pot that we originally allocated to do the things that we want to do at Smithfield, and now we can't fund it.
No, we're reprioritising the spend so we can fund it, because it's from the on-street parking reserve, which of course gets ring fenced. It gets topped up with the penalty charge notices. So it's of all the painful options, it's the least painful.
Okay, any other questions or points? Well, the town clerk wants me to take these recommendations separately and just get your consent and agreement on each of them. So the first one is to approve the SIL bids listed at table 2. Do members agree? Yep, agreed.
Not the podium.
No, not the podium. Podium, because I asked that we consider that separately, Deputy Chairman, for the reasons that you're aware of as well. Are members content then to approve the capital bids summarised at table 5? I'm assuming that silence is assent. And finally, are members content to approve the reallocation of OSR funding set out at paragraphs 42 to 49 of the report? Thank you for your silence, which I take in a positive light. Thank you very much. Right, members, we will move on to item 6 through item 6, which we did not receive any, for information, we did not receive any questions on that. So the update for energy costs and savings from the City Surveyor is taken as read. There are no questions on item 7. There's no other business at item 8 in public session that the chairman considers urgent. So we move to item 9, the exclusion of the public. Members content to exclude the public. Thank you very much indeed. And I thank any members of the public, that is, who've been watching the public session of this meeting. Town Clerk, can you tell me when the live stream has finished, please?
Will do, Chairman. Thank you.